Večeras u studiju Prve.
Yeah, if it was stable, I would not have had any reason to recreate myself. I would not have had any reason to break.
When did you last time cry? Because it's hard to come in different country to start over.
Yeah, last time I cried a lot in June.
Čuvena tatu umjetnica Friday Jones, koja potpisuje tetovaže brojnih poznatih ličnosti poput Angeline Jolie, Robbija Williamsa, članova benda Queens of the Stone Age i drugih, novo životno poglavlje započela je u Crnoj Gori.
Montenegro is the best thing I can imagine.
Od Hollywooda do Tivta, tako bi ukratko izgledao životni put Friday Jones. Od najpoznatijih svjetskih zvijezda do njenog malog i prvog tatu studija sa licencom u Crnoj Gori prošlo je samo nekoliko mjeseci. Naša zemlja postala je bogatija za umjetnika više, a taj umjetnik više našao je svoj mir i donio duh zapada na Jadransku obalu, ali i neke tajne.
A Pentagon family, so I try to keep those lives separate.
Za skoro 3 decenije umjetničke karijere, Friday je, što bi se reklo, prošla sito i rešeto kako zbog posla kojim se bavi, tako i zbog porodice. Razvod oca koji je vojno lice i majke poznate manekenke uticao je na životni put nesuđene slikarke. Odveo je skoro na sve krajeve svijeta, spojio sa nekim najpoznatijim ličnostima današnjice i učinio je hrabrom i samostalnom ženom koja svojim umijećem pomaže onima koji su se izborili sa karcinomom dojke. Ovo je priča o Friday Jones.
Večera sa nama u studiju tatu umjetnica Friday Jones sa kojom razgovaramo odmah nakon reklama. So Friday, it's really an honor to have you here in Prva TV. This is the first time that you're here in our studio for this interview. So how do you feel right now?
Well,
are you excited?
I'm thrilled, and the honor is mine that you are showing me so much attention and affection here, and you personally, Alexandra, and Montenegro as well. So I am thrilled.
Okay, this is not first time that we talk and that we meet, but in order to introduce yourself to audience, we have to say your real name. It's not Friday Jones, right?
It is Friday Jones for all intents and purposes, but I go by other names. Some good, some not so good.
But what's your real name?
My real name is classified. We're in a Pentagon family, so I try to keep those lives separate.
Okay, when and why did you make decision to come to Montenegro, to move here and to open the tattoo shop? What made you fall in love with this country?
Well, I had a dear friend who was a concierge who I had tattooed in New York at my Fifth Avenue studio. And we had an upmarket opportunity in New York City. Tattooing had climbed so much in the last 20 years, we could do an experience that had Chardonnay and privacy, and again, Fifth Avenue. So we had this upmarket clientele that I was working with. And my friend was a Russian concierge who had come to Montenegro and loved it so much, and she had convinced one of her clients to fly me out for a birthday party. So it was a little Russian oligarch princess who flew me out here to Porto, and I did some tattoos, and I was in a state of mind ready to see what was next after New York, and Montenegro is the best thing I could imagine.
When did it happen? How many years ago?
This happened 5 years ago, and it took me a good 5 years to close most of my New York life and honestly kind of calm down enough to appreciate Montenegro and for its spectacular lifestyle.
So you're living your dream life here,
yes.
Right?
Unequivocally, I am living my dream life here. I wake up in the morning and there's beautiful mountains and I live on the sea and there's smiles on the people, the fresh food. I cannot tell you how good the produce is here compared to New York, compared to the United States and other places. The food is very expensive and it's not so great. And there's so much to appreciate in Montenegro. I could just go on and on.
Really?
Yeah.
Now you said you're living your dream here in Montenegro, but a lot of people want to come to America to live and chase their dreams there. But you live their dream because you collaborate with Angelina Jolie, you worked with Robbie Williams, Penelope Cruz, Uma Thurman, and a lot of celebrities. So can you share some stories about them and their tattoos with us?
Let's see, who should we start with, Alexandra? Who would you like to hear?
Because Angelina and the Billy Bob Thornton.
Okay, so I was in Los Angeles, I was in Hollywood. I was living in the Hollywood Hills in 2001. And I was thinking maybe tattooing wasn't going to be a great job. And I was working in film, doing storyboarding and other projects. And my roommate, who had a beautiful home, was best friends with Angelina Jolie, who was a young actress at the time, up-and-coming actress. She had just done Gia, and she was kind of a buzz. So she was at the house every night, and they were, it was a party house. It was a lot of fun, girls, and man, she wanted a tattoo. And I had my equipment at the house, and I was like, oh, yes, sure, baby, whatever you want, let me do for you. And she was dating Billy Bob Thornton in secret at the time. And she wanted Billy Bob's name on her. And I just said, anything but that, please not that guy. Because he was dating Laura Dern in public and had seduced this young actress. We have a rule in tattoo culture that if the person wants the tattoo 2 weeks ongoing, 2 weeks later, then we cannot judge them. We must perform the work, okay? Because we are a service industry, ultimately. So I had to make it fun. And my friend had an old 50s Polaroid camera, so I watered down the ink. So it would be easy to remove, because I knew inevitably it would be. And we tied Angie to the bed, and we did this kind of pseudo bondage photo shoot with Angelina, and it was so much fun because we're all friends. So it was real sexy, and Angelina's beautiful and a beautiful person. Honestly, she had a very hard life, abandoned by her father. Her mother was French and alone in the country with 2 little children, and they struggled. So we identified with that as a generation too. Divorce. We had a high divorce rate in the country. So a lot of us from that Generation X, we don't mind getting a little wild. So that was that. And she loved the tattoo. And I couldn't talk about it for years, but she ended up having it removed easily, thank God. And she's gone on to great success. And I was privileged to have that time with her.
Penelope Cruz next.
Okay, so secret favor for Penelope Cruz, because this is an illegal thing. Again, all of this is outlaw, because tattooing wasn't so popular then. And my friends in Santa Gota are surprised when I say that tattooing had to go through a growth in the United States. It wasn't so accepted 15 years ago. So Penelope brings in her 15-year-old brother to the tattoo shop in Hollywood, where I was working that day. And by law, we cannot touch you until you're 18. And that woman, with her acting face, gave me such an emotion of like a little deer in the woods. And I totally broke the law for her and tattooed her little young brother underage. And it was his design. He did some really beautiful script of his grandmother's name. So it was a tender tattoo. It was a sweet tattoo, and nothing I thought would be too abusive. And sadly, later on, her agent called me to do another tattoo, and I was so threatened by breaking the law the way I had, very American in this, and I refused to do the tattoo. And to this day, I wish, I'd gone again, and then we'd be best friends. But,
you regret.
Yeah, you have regrets in these, but I was young, I was like young, and the law, we could, I don't want to lose my license, so.
But no regrets with Robbie Williams.
No regrets with Robbie Williams. I was smart by that point, and I knew to just take advantage of the opportunities. I had a yard in this hotel room. It was so posh and beautiful. So they were very sober too. He was sober at the time. He wasn't drinking, and so he had all his band, these heavily tattooed guys, playing the game Uno, playing a card game which is opposite of what you'd expect from a rock star. So I had to tease him a little bit that at least he needs a PlayStation or something, So anyway, we put John Lennon's "All You Need Is Love" with the music note, the liner, all the music on his back. Now, Alexandra, he is a very fit guy, and so he's got this very tight, muscly back, and with a spinal cord. And let me tell you, those straight lines for the music score was really tough to pull off.
Yeah.
But he loved the tattoo. And we go into the bathroom to check out, so he could see. And usually you'd hold a mirror up so he could see his back. And the only mirror they had was this extended arm mirror, right? That's connected to the bathroom, to the wall. So we're like, okay, well, let's go out and, relax and he's still in the bathroom. Suddenly we hear crash, crash, crash. And we get up, run in, and Robbie's on the counter kicking that mirror off the wall so he could see his back. I love it.
So you saw a really rock star.
He was a rock star. He was a total rock star and a sweetheart and a great guy. And then he sent me his new album at the time before it was released. And he's on the cover of Escapology.
Okay.
And he's on the cover bungee cording. And I had always had a dream that I have a billboard on Sunset Boulevard for some, because I was designing all these things. I just had this dream. And Robbie Williams was on Sunset Boulevard with my tattoos hanging upside down in the Escapology album. So, boja, it was like, thanks Robbie, thanks God, and then I checked that box.
Let's start your life story. When did you get into tattoo?
Well, first
Who got you into that?
I tell you, Alexandra, I didn't like tattoos.
Really?
I was intimidated by tattoos. They were threatening. My childhood was very strict, military. And it wasn't until I got into college, and I had been divorced, honestly, and was trying to make a living as an artist. And I was driving to university 3,000 miles across country, and it just came to me like tattoo, tattoo, tattoo. And I thought that it would be very easy to get into. I didn't think tattoos were very complicated, and I was very wrong. I went in with my portfolio, and I got hired, which is very difficult at the time. I didn't realize how difficult. 5 years it took to break me down, train me, and honestly teach me how to be competitive, teach me how to be a man in that sense of competing with the guys, because it's all men, and standing up for yourself and having a voice and expressing yourself and arguing for the work, and leading other women into the fore, which is now more women than men are tattooed in the United States, and that never happened before 2012. That happened.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful to the industry that it's taught me to be independent. By the time I was 25, I could feed a family of 4.
So you were 25 when you started tattoo?
I was 21.
21.
But by the time I was 25,
you
I
were
had the
living in
skills.
New York or somewhere
No,
else?
I was in Florida.
Florida, okay.
Florida, which my bosses had to legalize tattooing in Florida. It wasn't in the 80s. It wasn't, you had to have a doctor on the premises to do a tattoo.
Yeah.
Which was a way the bureaucracy just made it so that you don't have any tattoos. But of course you have bikers there in Florida, and they had this old counterculture. And my boss, very smart Jewish guy, put a retired doctor who'd hang out, just pay him $50 a day, and the doctor loved to hang out with the artists. And they ended up legalizing it and creating a whole industry there. So I was very privileged. And to this day, he has 5 tattoo shops, 25 artists, $2 million a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And were you the only woman who worked there as a tattoo artist? So that's the reason you picked the name Friday Jones.
Actually, Alex, it's another really outlaw story. But when I had I wanted to go see the masters. So at university, while I was training for tattooing, I would travel to San Francisco. Ed Hardy was a big master there, and see the artists there in Los Angeles. And New York was illegal till 1997. We were not allowed to tattoo there. So it was this outlaw culture. And I went to go, and my boss, the one in Florida, said, whatever you do, stay away from Spider Webb, who was this old tattoo meister in New York. He was famous for tattooing a late-term aborted fetus with a mom heart. So kind of gross, but also indicative of this culture, which was outlaw culture. So they'd squash this culture, and then it gets weird, while you're in the underground. And it was also very New York of the 80s and 90s too. New York of the 90s was a dangerous place. You think of the Warriors, you think of Escape from New York. It was all that. And so these were my bosses. And so in the 90s, we were coming up. So we had outlaw names. So the term Friday is from Robinson Crusoe, and he had his buddy, the Friday, and then there's a movie later with Clark Gable. There's a movie later that was called His Gal Friday. This means like an assistant. So I was Friday, the assistant person. So Friday Jones became my outlaw name, and it keeps me kind of pure, because sometimes you go through airports in foreign countries and they'll take tattoo artists' equipment and they'll send them back home if you're tattooing in a country that doesn't want tattoos. So my passport and my Facebook identity are always separate. So it's been good to take it on.
How did your family accept your new job? Because you wanted to become a painter.
I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to make a living as an artist, and I had watched my very beautiful mother.
Yeah, your mother was a model.
Yeah, my mother was a model.
Father worked for Pentagon.
My father.
That's the reason. Yeah, you don't tell your real name.
Yeah, of course. He's a fighter pilot. Big. Yeah, exactly.
And your brother?
My brother's a fighter pilot. My brother's a Top Gun pilot. So we had the men in my family, very powerful guys, and I love them. They're great. But my father had a new family. And my mother was wild. She was an artist that maybe did not connect with work, and typical of that generation of women. They kind of lost their way. They weren't allowed to work, and then when they had to work, they didn't know how to compete. So she disappeared eventually from my life. But I had a lot of freedom as a result. My father was preoccupied with his new family, and as a young girl, I thought I would get married, and then I was married to a pilot. I wanted to be a pilot, and so now here I get to be this artist and really take my own path, and it's led me here to beautiful Montenegro and to the country's first licensed tattoo shop. And that is something that I'm so grateful for and never knew I wanted in life, like a monopoly in that sense, but right now we have it. So
can you earn money here in Montenegro in your shop? You have 2 or 3 apprentices working with you?
We have another artist, Çenem Bozgul from Turkey. Yep, and she's very talented. We're seeing a lot of Turkish influence now because of that country is getting more unstable. It's very sad for them, but having the talent from Istanbul is great, I think, for our culture. And we have a wonderful apprentice, Romana, aka Roxy, and she's from Kotor, and she's 21. She reminds me of myself when I was 21 when I started tattooing. And every day, both of those girls show up and they go right to the design boards, and they're coming up with brand new tattoos for to show the world. And it's so exciting to see this energy coming up. And we also
do you have clients from Montenegro? A lot of clients, or they're like strangers?
No, they're
visitors.
No, not strangers right now. They're all from Montenegro. They're all from the Boca.
Yeah,
they're from Prva and Tivat and Kotor. And I'm so grateful because we legalized in November, which is a terrible time to open a tattoo shop in the winter, as I'm sure you can appreciate.
Yeah.
It's any business. And Tivat, come on, like it's tiny and it's Buddha, but the shop pays its own bills, and it's quiet enough. We need it quiet right now because I want to train my artists to get ready for the flood that we anticipate in the summertime. Montenegro has not seen a proper tattoo shop. A street shop is what we call it in the US. And from where I come from, 5 military bases, we would have 20 people lined up out the door when I was young, and you would just have to grind and focus and do a disciplined. A lot of times we have an idea of art where it's very free and loose, and tattooing is not that. Tattooing is craftsmanship and it is service. We have to listen to our client, and we have to generate to the best of our ability what they desire. So I'm getting my girls pretty right now. We're women. We also have Zvonko, who's coming from Novi Sad in the summertime. So I'm getting them drilled up and getting them experienced, and I'm glad for the break. I'm glad we had this nice quiet winter, because I think in May, it's going to be intense. So yeah. And it's interesting also, Alexandra, that Serbia only has one legal tattoo shop.
Really, just one?
Only one. It's in Novi Sad, and the guy's smart, but everybody works out of their apartments, and that's great for the artists, and it gives you a lot of space to take your time. If you do 1 tattoo a day or 2, you can really feel it and get with your client. But for a professional street shop, there's another level, and this region is ready for that. And so I'm excited to be on the forefront of that.
So what do you think? Why do people want to get tattoo? Because it's a rebellious moment, or maybe just some other need?
Well, I've been accused of being a rebel my whole life, and I don't really appreciate being called a rebel myself. But I can see how it's perceived as that. I feel that probably, speaking for myself, I just followed my own path. I just did what I thought was cool and what I loved. And serving people became this thing that I love now. And I think the people that I serve are expressing themselves unequivocally. They are expressing themselves. You know, we are born with a head, 2 arms, 2 legs for the most part. And what defines our individuality? Mostly we're defined by family, we're defined by culture, our politics perhaps, our region, our nationality. But who's the individual? Who is the soul inside? And I just was reading some medical tattoo. A woman had gotten some medical tattoos for scar coverage. And she said that tattooing in itself is a religious act. And it has to be seen as a religious act, and it's the best way to perceive it. And it would be the religion of the self, of taking your identity and kind of suffering with it, and then having this rebirth of you.
Do you think that your path would be different if you had a stable family, if you had parents by your side?
That's a great question. That's a great question. And I absolutely think it would be different. And I wonder, I was thinking that when I was flying home to Monty, and I was wondering if I would have, you know, a couple of kids, and I just, it's so interesting. Yeah, if it was stable, I would not have had any reason to recreate myself. I would not have had any reason to break. It was very painful as a kid. You know, sometimes your step parents don't want you around. You're a reminder of the old relationship, and the discomfort had compelled me forward. So yeah, great question, and I definitely would be a different person.
When do you need them most?
When
do you feel your parents, your mom, your dad? When do you cry? When did you last time cry? Because it's hard to come in different country to start over.
Yeah.
Again.
Last time I cried a lot in June when I realized I couldn't open. When I realized,
really?
Yeah, I cried so much in June.
But you're not a crier. You don't seem like a crier.
I was mad at myself for crying, but I had to, and I had to be vulnerable. Honestly, I had to let my friends in Montenegro lift me up, like a boat, waiting for, in dry dock. And I had to appreciate the culture for that too, because honestly, Montenegro let me relax. I could afford to let the shop kind of, live by itself for a while. And I cried a lot in June when I had to ask my dad for money, and I've never had to do that before. And it was very embarrassing and humiliating. And it was good because then I could talk to my dad. Suddenly I had to, this big Pentagon guy, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And by the way, you remind me of your mother, So having to ask him that and having him give it to me was very humbling and also very growing experience. I got a lot of growth out of it. But I just have to pay him back with interest.
Yeah.
I have to pay him back with interest.
Asked for interest.
Yeah, well, I offered it and they took it. Yeah, of course, So that's fine. We're capitalists. Everybody can make money. But it's the same thing. It's just like the same as my life with family. We have a thing inside us that will always give us what we need. And my spirituality was so enhanced by my time in Tivat and in Montenegro. So I feel like there's something that reminded me at the time when I was crying in June, and didn't know when I could ever open. Had already put out thousands of euro for this, beautiful little shop. Sometimes God, drives us to our knees, and that's the way we could pray. And once I'm on, what do you mean? Suddenly I was clear, and I had time to make a better vision, time to ask for better things, time to listen inside and find my power in that. And Alexandra, every day, more and more, I just get so much more confident. I have no reason to be confident. In reality, it's still very slow. We're still in the middle of winter here. And I have to travel to really make the money, to support my interests here. But it always comes. I learned to do the exercises, write things down as if they're already happening. I do meditation now. June, that was a big thing. I do 20 minutes a day.
So June was the month when you hit the rock bottom.
Yeah, big time, big style. And I was surprised because I was so confident, and I was surprised how hard it hit me. But I was very far away from my comfort zone. And I really had no excuse because it was June in Montenegro, in Tivat. You know, and every day I'd go out and I'm like, why am I crying? Look at Yadrin there in the Boca, you know, look at a black sheep, and there's people, there's friends, you know, and everybody's got, especially with our expats, you know, the foreigners, we all have challenges and we all love this country. So that builds us character,
So now you have your own shop here in Montenegro and something really great going on in America. Can we mention it, or is it too?
No, let's talk about that. Let's talk about
production house that want to do something with you, and we have to talk about breast cancer survivors.
Yeah.
And everything you do for them, and mostly for free.
Well, I tell you, we cover it with insurance. When I go to New York City, I work with plastic surgeons, and we reconstruct nipples on breast cancer survivors who have lost their nipples in a reconstruction. And I work with these top surgeons. And Alexandra, we don't have a great medical system, I'm sure you're aware of, in the United States. And for 30 years, I never had medical insurance. We would use alternatives.
Really, for 40 years?
30 years, yeah, as a whole artist, my whole career. And what are you gonna do? Pay rent, the equivalent of rent for medical? You know, like, no, well, we would do alternative therapies. We got all of us artists get very adept, or any kind of musicians, anybody, just start to take care of yourself. Vitamin C as soon as you feel anything. Try to make sure you're not in danger.
If you want to go, sorry to interrupt you, if you want to go to the dentist, how much do you have to pay?
Oof. I'll tell you, I had a broken tooth for 2 years. It was like $400, and I came here, and I was not gonna pay $400 because I didn't need to. I did oil pulling, which is an Ayurvedic technique with olive oil, you swish, or sesame oil. 2 years I did that every day with a broken tooth, and I didn't feel anything, it was great. Except that finally the tooth ended up, half of it in a sandwich, right before I came to Montenegro. Sexy story, a totally sexy story. So,
okay, go back to your...
Well, I came here and it was 50 euro with an x-ray and a great dentist. I felt no pain. First of all, they're very embarrassed for me with this broken tooth, but they're also shocked that had stayed that long, and they loved the oil pulling because they had heard about it too. So, and your country is not opposed to using non-patented drugs. You know, you'll prescribe medical grade honey, you know, or they'll tell you, the doctors will tell you to do things, you know, put more garlic in addition to pharmaceuticals. In the United States, if it grows from the ground, unless they can meter it and patent it, you're not going to hear about it, and they're going to criticize it. So this wonderful dentist for 50 euro with no pain, no blood. I couldn't believe it. He told me sit down. I wasn't prepared for any of that, you know. But it was fantastic. And I brag about Montenegro's medical system all the time, and socialized medicine, which I know sometimes could be difficult here. But for my experience, it's amazing, especially compared to the United States.
Okay, let's go back to the cancer survivors.
Okay, so I work with these...
And TLC, we have to mention the TLC channel.
Okay, yeah. So this is all very exciting. But so these women, these women would never be tattooed. You know, they're often... But our insurance, I work with this wonderful doctor who will cover the procedure with insurance so they don't have to pay out of pocket, which is for my country huge, because there's another guy charging 1,000 euro for nipples, which takes 40 minutes. You know, we don't want that. So these women change their lives with they see these nipples. They've seen themselves as tortured, ravaged by wolves, as what it looks like oftentimes. And then suddenly they see themselves coming back, and they take the fat from their waist. And these are older women, right, in their 50s and 60s. And they take the fat from their waist and they put it in their breasts. So suddenly they have this little hourglass figure, you know, like a pinup body. And I get to do the privilege of doing the nipples, which is amazing. And I'm also a board of a charity called P-Inc, p-inc.org, and we have a hashtag Pink Tattoo Day, where we donate in 16 cities across the country illustrative tattoos to cover breast scars, cancer scars. So we just had our first European pink tattoo experience in Amsterdam, with Tattoo Montenegro, with Zvonimir Gravitz, one of our Tivat locals, went there and represented Brother Printer and P-Inc. And we did the Amsterdam Tattoo Convention, 20,000 people coming through that show. Saw Montenegro, Njegos, and our cancer survivor getting this beautiful work. And so, So when I was in New York last month, we're doing my work, and we had psychiatrists call me, and I had done his wife's nipples, and he said, I want to bring you on board to work with psychiatry, and I feel like it would be part of our healing therapies. And we have people who cut themselves and depression, and he says that I tattooed him on a podcast, and he said it was such a, and they're Jewish, they don't get tattooed. And he said that his identity had shifted so much with his tattoo, and he wants to bring in tattoo artists to work with psychiatry patients too, to remind them. Sometimes you just need this little message of hope or love or an affirmation of who you are to get us out of those doldrums. And it's worked for me, truly. But now, next level, we had TLC call us. And they are curious about what we're doing, and we pitched a TV show. So now we're in the process of hearing about it. But I got producers from 2 coasts calling me to do interviews. And as you know, Alexandra, doing a TV show is a big process.
Yeah.
It takes a long time. And this is something that's been dear to my heart for a few years. So, they say, oh, Friday, how in New York, how available are you? And I'm like, well, I'm working very hard in Montenegro. So, I have to split my time with Montenegro first, and then we'll see how this goes. But, we work very hard here.
The strangest part of the body you put tattoo on?
Well, you can get tattooed anywhere. The inner lip's always annoying, and the inner ear is boring. But,
Genitals,
vulva. That was Miami, strippers, they love all that. It was pretty weird. But I think my first year I did, the most impression tattoo I have is, I was working in Florida, and a guy from Orlando comes in, and I don't know if I like tattoos my first year. I was like, oh, this is just, I'm doing for college, for university, make money. And this kid comes in, and he's from Orlando, where we have Disney World, and he said he wants Minnie Mouse giving oral sex to Mickey Mouse with "It's a Sick World and I'm a Happy Guy" on it. And I was like, really, man? You want that? I get to draw that? And he was like, I want it. His first tattoo. Here's the money, cash. I drew Minnie Mouse's spit coming off, him holding her ears. And it was so much fun. And after that, I was like, wow. I worked for the post office before doing very boring eagles on T-shirts, So I knew I loved it then. But.
Okay, and before the end, because we are close to
Super.
Yeah to an end, what advice would you give someone who is going to get a first tattoo?
The first advice I would say is check your artists. Make sure that you look at their Instagram and any other portfolio that they have a good following, that their work is theirs. Sometimes people will borrow photos off the internet and not be theirs. Secondly, I would say do your research too. So, I feel like sometimes we can do tattoos for fashion. That's no problem. But I feel like the tattoos that really you love, you've thought of for at least a month. I would say try maybe draw it on you, and you'll get a fake tattoo and wear it and see if it's something that's not going to annoy you. But I tell you, Alexandra, people are getting smarter and smarter about tattoos every day, and especially this new generation. And I'm pretty confident in Montenegrins, ideas and what they're going to get. And I think we're moving forward. We're doing great.
Thank you, Friday. I prije posljednjeg pitanja slijedi još jedan blok reklama. And as I said before, the last question, since you began tattoo, have you noticed changes in demographic profile of people getting tattooed?
Alexandra, I sure have. And I tell you, moms are getting tattooed. You never saw moms. You never saw moms getting tattooed so much. But the moms are coming in with their kids and getting matching tattoos. And moms always have to kind of hold the fort and maybe be more strict. And I see more and more moms celebrating their bodies and celebrating their children and their husbands as well. So yeah, if moms are doing it, then who can't do it, right?
So we're living in a mom's world.
God bless them. Somebody's got to do it.
Thank you very much for your time. Hvala i vama što ste večeras bili sa nama. Želimo vam ugodan ostatak večeri uz program Prve. Lako noći.